I'll have Mr. Bukowski take you to your
Well, he
chair.
certainly would make the suggestion.
Okay.
Oh, very hot.
I'd like to call the Plan Commission
Very hot.
meeting to order. Roll call, please, Terry.
Mayor Kudowski.
Here.
Jim Allen.
Present.
Tim Bukowski.
Here.
Mike Skiffington.
Here.
Corey Campbell. Here. Gary Paul.
Here.
And Allison Williams.
They got it.
Okay, please stand for the pledge. And please remember all the men and women that we have stationed throughout the world. Okay, I have no changes to the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, action on minutes from special meeting of September 19th, 2017.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any comments from the public? Limited to items not on the agenda. If there's any comments from the public on items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we're going to move forward. Number 7, action items. Action on a final request from Timothy Willaz with Engberg Anderson Architects, agents for Case Wilwerka with United Construction Realty, to establish a planned unit development overlaid zoning ordinance located at 791 Morris Avenue, parcel number VA-67-A-2. Aaron.
This is the ordinance for the final PUD submittal for the United Development Project, corner of Morris and Holmgren. You saw the preliminary PUD proposal a couple weeks ago. The village board subsequently approved the preliminary PUD, and the final PUD is now before you for your review and recommendation.
Any questions for Mr. Willaz?
Are there
I
any
would like
changes?
to-
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
would like to open the floor up to Mr. Balazs so that we could understand if there's any changes since our last meeting that we had with them.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is open.
Hi, everyone.
Aye.
How you doing again?
Good, how are you?
Again. No, go on.
There hasn't been a lot of changes. What we've been doing is refining the plans. As we've kind of been presenting here, we've been moving through the documentation phase of the project. So we've been coordinating with structural and civil. So we've been refining the details that we presented to you. So the grading hasn't changed. The utility strategy hasn't changed. Some of the things that were addressed in the PUD final are things like some of the landscaping components, like clarifying that street trees, dumpster placement, all the dumpsters are within the building. So a lot of refinement, but nothing's changed.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll close the floor.
I would like to ask if there's any way that we can influence the developer to include local contractors in their bidding?
Can we do that?
That's a toughie.
I noticed everybody that's listed here is from somewhere else. That's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, are you saying limit it to local?
No,
Oh,
include.
oh, include, okay.
Really not through the PUD process. If we are providing TIF assistance, which we don't have an agreement on that at this point, we could certainly encourage it. The flip side is, in general, I mean, people are trying to find the most economical way to get these projects done, and I would assume they would try to find lowest bid, no matter what they were doing, wherever that is. But
Lowest bid isn't always the best bid.
right, but that is something we've kind of looked at in terms of the TIF assistance side, but I don't think it would be appropriate under the PUD side. that would be overstretching your boundaries.
Through the years also of knowing some construction people, they typically work within a group, they know what the developer wants to do. So I don't know that that can be a request.
Well, I will say that in the last month or so, as we've kind of approached a construction start time, Case is involved in this community. He's active. He's got friends here. So we have been talking to a lot of local construction consultant types,
Okay.
and we've been interviewing them to see if they're qualified or up to speed to handle the typology.
Okay.
Another quick question, which is, I think, been answered before. You're going to build as they're rented out. In other words, first phase will be your first building. When that gets to be 80% occupancy, you'll create the next building?
We think so, and we're kind of using this first building to kind of test so we have a market study, so we're kind of testing to make sure that that market study is actually on par with what the demographic is that's renting.
Okay. And building 3, as I'm looking at this picture, is your first building then?
Correct.
Okay. That's where you've got your corner piece in. Okay, I guess one other question. The center court that you've got there, are you going to do something with that right away along with your first building? Are you going to give the people something?
Yes, sir. As part of the phase 1, we have to put our bioretention in there.
Okay.
So we plant that as per the landscape plans that we brought forth as part of the PUD. So it'll have very nice plantings that kind of emulate what's happening or what the wetland wants to look like.
Okay.
And we're currently showing kind of so the bioretention dips down, and we're currently showing a boardwalk pedestrian path over the top of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So imagine that's part of phase 1.
Okay. When could we, as a village, expect a project like this to be completed?
Well, we are very motivated to stay on top of this and get going. So barring any setbacks, we think we're going to have contractor bidding starting on October 13th. And we're going to go in for early footing and foundations to the state, hopefully right at the end of October.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just for footing and foundations, so we anticipate that review time won't be too lengthy. All the interviews we've been conducting, we've been asking the people being interviewed if they could mobilize and get on site in November to start pouring the basement.
Okay.
So we would be hoping just before Thanksgiving to be digging a hole and pouring foundation walls.
That's just on the first building?
Correct.
Okay, okay. The corner lot there, you've got a lot of amenities with outside activities. When do you expect to get that done?
Well,
Is that going to come along with the building of 1 and 2, let's say?
It would probably come along with building 1.
Building 1, okay.
Yeah, and we went back and forth as to what the best strategy was and where the best place to start was, and we kind of landed on 3, but I know Case is very interested in this pocket park as a public amenity and an amenity to his residents. So I know that he wants to get that in there, but this was the safest place for him to start in terms of testing the market.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Ken, did you have a question?
Well, I hate to raise it, but I'm going to. It's not really a question, but we don't want this delayed any more than we've already had it delayed, but I just see in the paper today an article that the DNR is going to change its whole process of permitting relative to wetlands. And I don't know if that would affect this area, which we've had struggled with since this all got started a long time ago. Anybody have any idea whether that would impact this or change, at least maybe not building 3, but maybe the west end of it?
So they already do have a permit to fill what they need specifically with respect to this project. Representative Jacques forwarded me the request regarding testifying because there was a hearing today. They had adequate people, but still asked that I submit information I specifically submitted in relation to this site and our trials and tribulations on this site. you know, in my ideal world, we would look at trying to put a roadway through there, but I don't know, the design they have does not preclude a roadway from going in there. It's just a discussion we would have to have. The domino would really be more so to the south and how it connects through and what it does to that development down there.
Okay.
More so, but this would have to go through, and it's really, you know, it's just,
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
No other questions, I'll move to close the floor.
We have a motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is closed. Thank you, Tim. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the establishment of a planned unit development as described by Engberg Anderson Architects, who've done it now for a number of times in good fashion. The overlay zoning ordinance related to that planned unit development located at 791 Morris Avenue, parcel VA-67-A-2.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the final request for the PUD for the corner of Morris and Holmgren. Can you include in your motion that they also meet the conditions of approval as presented in 7A?
I would certainly feel that the motion includes that, but I will make it specific that those conditions be met as well, yes.
Agreed.
Second agrees as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the final PUD. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, 7B, action on ordinance amending, deleting, and repealing and recreating various short-term rental provisions in Chapter 17, Planning and Zoning of the Ashwaubenon Municipal Code. Tony, first of all, before I turn it over to Tony, I have to make a statement. I walked this neighborhood on Sunday afternoon, and I talked with people, and I have emails from people that are not very happy with the procedure that was put in place to get this language put in the back of the budget.
State budget, you mean?
The state budget, yes. A lot of people were very upset that they took away our control. Well, they now took away our control, but there's nothing that we can do about that. That is the law. We have to act within the law. But the people that I talked with get very upset when there are people who want to open the short-term rentals, and they say, well, that isn't a neighborhood anymore, because they live in that neighborhood. The people that we represent live in that neighborhood, and they want it to remain a neighborhood. And this is not a good thing for the village of Ashwaubenon, for the school district that we have. We don't, you know, it's going to be taking some affordable housing away from the young families that would like to move into Ashwaubenon. So that being said, there's nothing we can do. So our legal team has worked on an ordinance to do what we can do. So that's all I have to say.
Madam Chairman, I know our legal team, Tony, and the rest of you people that put this together. Could it be permissible that Tony come up to the front table so that the people understand as he's telling us what's going on here, so that everybody is in the same page on this? You know, it's very important that people understand we are not the troublemakers here.
Yeah.
And I think,
Right.
Tony, you're going to do a great explanation so we all understand this.
And Tony's not the troublemaker either.
No, Tony definitely is not, but we're
It's
trying to get him
You know, it
to
is
draft up something.
correct. I mean, I got an email from an individual who represents people up in Oneida County, and they have they have restrictions in their ordinance, and they asked what we're putting together for our ordinance, because they now have their ordinance that is going to be null and void. So this has been a bit of a struggle, but, you know, we'll get through it, so.
Mary, have you had any contact with other communities as far as what they're doing? Because it does not just pertain to Ashwaubenon.
It doesn't.
said.
But the other communities are not in the same position that we're in. The other communities, you know, don't have to worry about losing their housing stock like we do. We are landlocked. I mean, these are affordable homes for people coming into the village with small children, and they're not, you know, it's going to end up being, you know, that you're not going to be able to buy a $140,000, $150,000 three-bedroom ranch anymore. So it's gonna change, but, you know, like I said, there's nothing we can do about this. I mean, I sent my emails to the governor, a lot of people sent them. So we can only do what we can do. Other communities don't have to worry about losing that housing stock, so they don't mind if, you know, as long as they have, you know, their licensing ordinance. I'm sure they'll have to have a licensing ordinance. As far as I know, we were the only community that actually put in an ordinance limiting where people could have short-term rentals because of our unique situation, so.
Okay.
Anyway, with that, I'll let Tony talk.
All right, I'll get started here and go through a variety of things with respect to the proposed ordinance that is before you tonight. Before we get into the details on that, just a couple of general comments. So, as has been discussed at length, we've got a new state law, or a couple of new state laws that have been passed, that really essentially what they do is prohibit our ability, to prohibit short-term rentals greater than 7 days, or the 7 to 29 day time period. What we can do is we can license those short-term rentals that operate less than 7 days. The village board met last week and adopted a licensing ordinance in which we're working on that licensing scheme, the application process. That ordinance has been adopted by the board and has been published. And so what we have in place now is a licensing ordinance, which is separate from what's before you tonight, which is related to the zoning ordinance and the prior provisions that were adopted, I believe in August of 2016 regarding short-term rentals. So as a result of the new state law, what we need to do is we have to amend our zoning ordinance for it to be consistent with, because the new state law says that if you have an ordinance that's in place as of the time that state law was adopted, you essentially can't enforce it. So it takes away our ability to enforce our previously drafted and adopted short-term rental ordinance. So setting aside the licensing aspect, we're here on the zoning or the land use aspect, and what has been proposed is some modifications to our short-term rental ordinance or various provisions that are located throughout Chapter 17. So really what we have within the modification of Chapter 17 are kind of two issues. The first being whether to prohibit those sorts of short-term rentals that are less than 7 days. We would recommend that we amend the zoning code to prohibit those sorts of short-term uses. And so essentially what we would do is modify the definitions so that short-term rental would be defined as fewer than 7 consecutive days. And then what we'd also have to do is amend our table of allowable uses to take out the overlay district and make sure that the definition is incorporated in such that it's clear that that use is not permitted under our table of allowable uses. So that's kind of the first issue to take up. And then the second issue then is the conditional use permit. And what do we do with that? So we can either still continue to require that. Our prior ordinance required people only in the overlay district, which is in that limited area to the south and a little bit southwest of Lambeau Field, to get a conditional use permit. And again, given the new state law that takes away our ability to enforce our prior ordinance, we have to amend that. And so the question becomes, do we require a conditional use permit? And if so, under what conditions and circumstances? So The question then becomes, well, what is the point of having the conditional use permit? Since the state law takes away our ability to prohibit it, then it becomes a question of, well, does it really make sense to even continue to require a conditional use permit? If we have no discretion and people apply for a conditional use permit and we have no discretion to deny that use since we can't prohibit it, then why would we continue to require it? We could run into all sorts of legal issues that come along with that. As far as denying that, and the state has tied our hands at this point. So we can continue to require it, which would, again, we'd have to go through the process. It would be a cost to the village. It would take time. Those are all sorts of considerations that go into this, and really go into the fact that there's really not a whole lot that we can do about it anyway. So do we really want to go through that process as a result of it? Our recommendation would be to eliminate the conditional use permit due to the change in state law at this point, and focus on prohibiting the short terms that are less than 7 days. So I think that about covers it. I don't know if Allison has anything else to add.
I think just in terms of, we've gone full circle on this, just in our own discussions and trying to find the best way to regulate it. Everything that we feel you could do legally in a conditional use permit, we think we have covered in the licensing provision. There's a couple tweaks that we still want to do on the licensing provision, and we will take care of that. We were just discussing, we'll probably bring that to village board on Friday. But the biggest issue in terms of the conditional use permit is, aside from it being redundant, you're, from a sake of transparency, you're sending out a notice to all the neighbors to let them know that that's coming. But the bad part is, you're sending them a notice and telling them, you can come in here and complain to us, but there's nothing we're gonna do about it. As soon as you deny it, we have some concerns that somebody would be able to still challenge that denial. We've talked about distance requirements, we've talked about owner occupied, and those are the types of things that we still feel like, regardless of how you do that, you've now prohibited it for someone else, and that we think that ends up violating the law. So we can go through these things, and if you still want to do the conditional use permit, you can, but I guess we want to caution in terms of, you're sending out notices to a bunch of people to let somebody know they're coming in the anticipation that they can provide some sort of feedback, and you can make a judgment and a decision on something that really you legally probably can't, or you'll end up feeling you're in an awkward position, listening to neighbors say, we hate it, please don't do it, and you're gonna have to say yes anyway. Right.
Allison, when they apply for the license, are the neighbors still notified in a certain distance that this neighbor applied for a license?
Currently, it's not in our ordinance, but I
Right.
don't know that
The neighbors wouldn't be notified at all then?
Not as it stands right now. That's something that we could look at incorporating. We're still working through on how the process and application procedure is going to go.
It's certainly something, we can provide available on our website, though, a list of all the places that are licensed. We can make that, it certainly would be public record and information that we readily could provide. There's not a concern about
What
providing
about
it.
controlling it? Is that done on a complaint basis only? Or do we have any control over that even?
I think that's debatable, too, as well. I mean, you certainly can make complaints as far as the operation, if there's loud noises, just sorts of uses that are going on that violate any of our ordinances. You can certainly contact the authorities and make those complaints. But there also, again, becomes a question as far as how far can we take that, and what exactly violations are they tied to enough to be able to revoke it, and then are you prohibiting their ability to use that? So it again becomes a difficult question of enforcement.
But we are able to, require them to do a license, to have this, the emergency contact information and things like that. And we are able to still track down those who are doing it and make sure that they get the license. There's a violation for not getting the license. And in large part, what we're looking for is that contact information for when there are problems on site. I think that's at least internally, one of our biggest concerns from a public safety standpoint is who is in charge, and how do we get them there to assist if we have a problem on that property.
Isn't there something in this ordinance, though, too, that if there's 3 complaints in 12 consecutive months, that the license can be looked at?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so we're looking at it in terms of, more similar to our nuisance ordinance, which we have for all property owners, whether it's a long-term tenant or an owner-occupied property. If they have multiple complaints and citations, we kind of ramp that up, and there's more citations to follow, and in this case, it would be revocation of that license.
Forgetting about the whole short-term rental verbiage for just a moment. Excuse me. If we say in R1 districts, in R2, R1, let's say R1 and R2, which is the bulk of the area we're talking about, I would suspect. If we say R1 and R2, and which we have, I believe, delineated in our zoning code, what's allowed, what's not allowed. So if these short-term rentals are not allowed, regardless of the number of days we're talking about, the state law overrides that. So they can override our own zoning law.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of thought that, but I thought maybe our zoning law could save this, but because we leave short-term rentals out of it altogether, we just say these are what's allowed in R1 and R2, but if these, if these short-term rentals are not allowed, the state would override that, the state statute. Okay.
Yep, that's good.
Thank you.
So can we tell them if they're going to get a license, they're going to have to change the zoning from R1, R2 to business? I mean, it's a business. Let's face facts. It's a business. So if it's going to be a business, then your lot should be zoned business.
You can't, and the other problem you'd have with that, though, is say you zoned it to community business, they can do everything else that's allowed
Yeah.
in community business.
We'll develop a new business, package business zone. I don't care what you call it, because then it's going into the paper that is coming up, that the zone is changing. So if the people around it who had no idea it was going to happen, all of a sudden, well, if you read the paper, you would have caught it. Because when it's changed in zoning, don't you have to send it out to the people around them and say, it's coming?
That'd be tough, Mike. That'd be spot zoning, and basically you take one property and change the zoning of it. That would get struck down, I'm sure, as spot zoning, I would think. No?
Not really any different than what you're interested in is a conditional use permit. It's kind of the same thing. You're sending out the notices to the property owners, but that's where we're saying, people can come up here and complain all they want.
I understand
can't
that,
do
but the
anything about
person that lives next door doesn't have any idea it's happening.
If they violate an ordinance, we can do something about it. If they
Right.
violate our village ordinances, we can do something about it.
In terms of noise, or
Correct.
the license, or something else.
Right.
We can, right.
Mhm.
But
Oh.
there's not anything we can do to say you can't rent anymore.
How different is ours compared to Green Bay? They don't care whether they go in.
Right, right.
They don't
It's-
care.
It's quite different, I mean, based upon just that, I mean, as far as what was in place, because my understanding was, I know they did have some restriction years ago, and then I believe, like you had indicated, they kind of
They don't care.
didn't care, and then we obviously had our prior ordinance, which
I
had many
want
more
you to tell
restrictions.
me what I'm reading wrong here. Property manager, any person providing property management services to at least 3 short-term rentals, okay?
Yep,
Further on, each short-term rental shall have a property manager residing on site. He's not the Holy Ghost, the Father and the Son, so how do they pull that off?
no, if that were to be adopted, I would ask that section be stricken, that somehow made it in here, which should not, should be deleted.
So the person doesn't have to live on,
That's correct.
The one question I have, Tony, here on number 13 of these they shall comply with, it says not less than 1 bathroom for every 6 occupants. Can we change that to 4?
That would be up to the commission as far as what they would like to do, unless Todd has any other comments on code requirements, and that would be something that, again, would need to be tweaked as part of the licensing ordinance as well.
Right. Is that a problem? I mean, I know families that have, there's husband and wife and 4 children, they would not live in a house with 1 bathroom. So,
I can attest to that because there's 6 in my family, and right now we have basically 1 working bathroom, and it is a challenge. So, per the code, I would say that it doesn't. You can get by with 1 per the code, the building code. When it comes to residential, there really is no limit. Doesn't say that it has to be one bathroom or bathroom and a half. There is no minimum or maximum limit. When you come to the commercial code, which it's really not supposed to be tied to commercial, but it's up to 15 occupants before you actually have to have 2 separate restrooms. So, but then again, in a commercial one, you're not usually bathing and everything else. Where
Right.
this would be a little different because it's residential. It could go down to 4. I guess that's your preference, but it wouldn't. There is nothing in the building code that would say one way or the other.
And just another quick point, all those items from 1 to, say, 24 that are redlined,
Yes.
that would be if you would decide to keep the conditional use permit. So those would all be requirements that would be added in. So if the conditional use permit is going to go away, then this will be unnecessary.
So would these requirements go into the licensing?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay. I would like to see it move to 4. That's just my opinion. I would like to see the requirement that it's, you have to have 1 bathroom for every 4 residents, not 6.
What are you going to do with the ones that live there? And they have 4 kids and 2 adults.
Well, you could limit it to when you rent it, right? You're talking about when you rent it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
When you rent it.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
all
just
right, as long as
it's
you
just
can
for the
get that.
short-term
Where did you
rental.
see that, what you didn't like?
I just don't want to see it bother the family that own the property.
Well, that all comes out.
Not less than 1 bathroom for every.
No, that I see, but where's the one you mentioned, Mike?
This here?
Is that in the red ink that's coming out?
Yeah.
So,
That was number 16.
okay, so if we adopt this, then all of the red typing would come out?
So-
Is that where we are?
And I'll kind of go through the ordinance to explain a little bit, because I kind of put out a few options depending upon which way the commission wanted to decide upon. But really, there's no sense in having the overlay district anymore, given these distinctions. You would choose one of the 2 table of allowed uses. The first one just talks about the short-term rental. It's indicated as Class A, and due to the blanks all over through each box would indicate that it would be prohibited. And then again, it eliminates the overlay district at the end. If you were to retain the conditional use permit, then that would be the table below. And then, so those would be the changes up to that point. The red would be kept and deleted as kind of set forth. And then the options in item 11 on packet page 76, those would be included if you were to keep the conditional use permit. If not, then that would just all be deleted.
So Tony, in reality, if we get rid of the conditional use permit, a lot of that language will go into conditional use permit. A lot of that language will go into the permit that the person has to apply for to back us up on
The
on that.
license.
The licensing.
I can understand getting rid of
Yes, in fact,
getting rid of that paperwork.
items 1 through 24 in item 11 are in the licensing ordinance right now.
So what are we, it's not unusual, I'm confused. What are we asking to be done tonight with all the red and the black and the two tables? What's your recommendation?
So it would be to approve the definitions
17-3-200, that whole section.
and then to delete the items in 17-3-600, the stadium overlay district.
Essentially, that section that is currently there would be repealed and not replaced.
And then adopt table 1, which would be the first table on the top of the next page. Also approve the addition of the language in 17-4-200.
Okay,
And then subsection D11, I'm sorry, 17-4-300, sub D, sub 11, sub E would all be deleted or repealed.
if we do away with the conditional use.
Yes.
Okay.
If we do the license instead of the conditional use.
Right.
Okay. So if we keep the conditional use, all of this language stays in with a conditional use permit that really has no substance. Or we can get a license and require all of this, and if they violate anything, we can pull their license.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That would come out.
No, this goes into the license. If we
But
vote for
the license already exists.
Okay, but this
exists
is
as of
additional
last week.
language to restrict what they're doing with the license. So if they violate any of these things, we can pull the license.
But this would not exist in these pages exist somewhere else, and that's how they will get enforced in that license section. They're not in this portion of the ordinance. This is just redundant, basically, in case you want to do a conditional use permit.
What would be the benefit of it? We can't enforce it, right?
Right.
Okay.
All right, so
That's why
these,
we're
so
saying eliminate.
what's in 17-4-300, D11, small e, all of that read from 1 through 24.
Essentially-
Through 23, actually. That's all contained elsewhere? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Those requirements?
That's
Okay,
in
all right.
Chapter 6, Article 13, which is the new licensing ordinance.
Okay, all right.
Okay. That we have approved, or we haven't approved?
The village board has approved that.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
All right, then I'll make a motion
Oh,
to...
wait a minute. Since we have the floor open, I just want to know if anybody out there wants to talk about this.
Right. Does anybody have any comments about this issue before
We
we?
don't have the floor open.
I
Motion
thought-
to open the floor.
We
for
just
interested
asked
parties
them to come up
speak.
here.
Get out of your way.
So the floor is
You make a motion to open the floor?
For interested
We'd
parties
have to
speak.
open the floor.
Yeah, I just make it a motion. Somebody want to second it?
Yeah. We have a motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is open. Anybody out there like to say anything? Could you come up and state your name and address, please?
Pull the mic up.
Castornia.
Pull the mic up, Sue, please, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark Castornia, 2061 True Lane. You're talking about a license. Is there a licensing fee that goes with that?
Yes. The licensing fee,
Has that been determined?
Yes, that is $500 right now for
Got it.
initial application.
Does the state limit the amount that the license fee could be?
The state does not directly, however, the law requires that it has to be a reasonable estimate of what it costs to administer, enforce, and process the license.
And what is Green Bay's right now? 300 or something?
I don't know what their conditional use permit fee is, and they do not have a license yet.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thanks, Mark. Anybody else like to say something? Come on up, Ken.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was more or less going to present a general statement, and you're working specifically on the items. So I don't know if I should be interfering with you.
You can come up and
We'd
say the
like your
general
input.
statement now, Ken.
My name is Ken Seidel. I live at 1082 Valley View Road in the village of Ashwaubenon. I was not born or raised here. We moved to our address 53 years ago, and at that time, it was zoned first residential. And our definition back then was that it was a single-family residence in that area. Over the years, we raised our family. Everybody grew up, left, the kids are gone. My son owns a very successful business in the village yet. And we thought, boy, the nest is empty. We can sit here in this first residential home, unaffected by anyone, until we retire and until we see if the cat outlives us. All of a sudden, over a period of time, that has disappeared. Now, there's an organization to the east of us who's been accused of several things in regard to the transition of the neighborhood, and they're not true. The area that has changed from Lombardi over through Blue Ridge was business before, it's business now. In fact, a prettier series of businesses. And the homes were taken down in a multi-family setting, and that might be the case. So the people who lived there said, by golly, and the majority, might be better than it was. Then this recent thing happened with the people in Madison, and my wife made me promise to tone my language down, and I said I would. But as I speak to you, would you please, when I say something that is presentable in my mind, I'm probably, for you fellows, thinking along the lines we used to speak in the barracks when we were discussing something in the service. So I was just as disappointed as you people are, and I want to commend all of you. In fact, the members who are not here, you put up a good fight. Unfortunately, I don't know if they used a flashlight to all get together to pass that bill down there, but it's passed, and it's the law. Our disappointment is that we had people elected to represent us. They failed us. I've contacted our senator, our representative, our governor, and I had indicated that I have voted that particular party my entire life. I've even worked for a congressman under that political heading. I'm done. They did not answer mine. They were supposed to represent this village, and in my opinion, they didn't. To get a few dollars passed because the budget was late, they gave in, they caved in, did not represent the people of Ashwaubenon. I won't forget it, and anyone I can speak to who will agree with me, we will be looking at a different opinion when we vote in the next election. Now, as far as you people are concerned, I hope you continue to work on this, and our attorneys work on this response to what they've dictated to the village, and make that as tight as you can. You know, it would make me happy if when someone turned a sheet of paper on that thing, the paper squeaked. It would be so tight. But I just wanted to express my feelings, my wife's feelings, the feelings of the people in the neighborhood, that the organization there being blamed is not to blame. It's our politics down in the state of Madison, in the state of Wisconsin. I do have a statement too there. I think, and I've mentioned it to one member of their board, of this committee, it would be a real good solution to the problem down there if they took that entire legislature, found the shortest pier in that lake in Madison, and sent them on a long walk on that pier, and then start over. So I've expressed my frustration. I did not directly address your problems because it's the law, and we're going to have to abide by the law. I just wanted you to know my feelings, and I have spoken, of course. I have meals, I have coffee, and we get together in our neighborhood, us all retired people. And there are others who will express their opinion in the next election at the state level. But for them, I want to say again, thank you for what you've done and for giving me the opportunity to get rid of some frustration. And I can look my wife in the eye and say, I presented it in a tone that didn't get a shut off of TV or getting any cameras here that would delete their report. Thank you.
I got a few vibes, though.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak for or against this? Nope. Okay, motion to close the floor.
Make motion to close the floor.
A motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. What would you like to do with this?
A couple more. Have you been approached already by people to do this?
Yes.
Yeah, one more. You had nightmares on how you're going to enforce it. Anyone? I just see it as a nightmare.
We already have a service that scans and provides us addresses. We will continue to monitor and work on that in terms of trying to track them down. It's an issue of room tax. It's an issue of the safety and inspections that need to be done. It's the emergency contact information. And so it's part of just getting that done. And then this change in ordinance has caused a influx of phone calls, certainly. So probably people will be doing it more publicly now than trying to do it under the radar as they had been.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion, but it's going to be complicated. I still think it's complicated in a technical sense because all that red language is not crossed out. So why don't, you know what you're doing, why don't you make a suggested language for us, and then I'll just make a motion based on your language, or somebody can make a motion.
It's the approval of the license.
Would the recommendation be enough approval, Tony?
I was going to say, just what's on the bottom of the recommendation, on the bottom of the green sheet.
Why not?
Does that language work?
Well, let's see what
Would
it
that
says.
cover it all?
Keep in mind that we will have it cleaned up then based on the direction of you guys tonight, so that when it comes to village board, all the confusing parts will be gone and it will
Correct.
look and read correctly.
They'll be there.
But
All right,
just-
then I'll
so-
move to adopt the ordinance revisions as presented, prohibiting short-term rentals less than 7 days village-wide and eliminating conditional use permit requirements.
There you go. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance revisions prohibiting short-term rentals less than 7 days village-wide and eliminating conditional use permit requirements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, and number 8, any items for next agenda? If you have any, call the village. I need a motion to adjourn.
So
Make
moved.
them second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And we will see the board members, don't forget, 7 o'clock Friday morning.
You bringing the bagels?
Yeah.